But tell me, how did Sanjay Gandhi come into your life?
Oh, I met him at a wedding. And there was a wedding in the family of a cousin who was in school with Sanjay.
Okay.
So I met Sanjay there. We were not even introduced. It was just somebody who walked up to me and said, "Excuse me, there's such a long line of people for the food. Do you think that I could take something from your plate?" And I turned on one of those bratty little 16-year-olds and said, 17-year-old, and said, "Would you come to these places just to eat?" And I had no idea who he was. And then by the evening, he'd asked my cousin who was getting married if he could marry me.
Don't
and
tell.
the cousin had a fit. He said, "You better speak to her parents. She's 17 years old and she's my cousin." And then he came to the house and he spoke to my mother. He just said that I would like to take her out and introduce her to my family. And my mother said, "No, she's too young." And so after a lot of persuasion, I was allowed to go out twice a week, between 6 and 8.
And where would you go?
We'd go to his house. And after about 4 months of this, Sanjay said, "Look, let's just get married and be done with it."
So when you'd go to the house, then you'd meet Indiraji.
Well, the first time I met her was at dinner. Sanjay said, "You know, we're having dinner with my mother tonight." And I said, "Oh, that's nice." And then about 20 minutes later, it struck me who his mother was. And I burst out crying and cried and cried and cried. I said, "Why can't we eat here? Why can't we eat here?" And he said, "You've got to do it sometime." Yes. So I was dragged off to the dining room. And by then I was so frightened that he'd gotten even more frightened. You know? So the two of us entered absolutely petrified.
Quivering.
And sat down at the table. And after about 10 minutes, my mother-in-law said, "Well, since Sanjay's not going to introduce us, would you like to tell me your name?"